right, welcome to The Wise Guys, a podcast where we unleash the unthinkable, step over the line to help us see things differently and go to the inside edge to stimulate some new thinking. We might even answer some questions you hadn't thought to ask. So welcome, everyone. I'm Mac, and I'm the host. And in this episode, this is going to be fun. We got Coach Stu on the front burner here. We are going to the mat. We are going on to the mat, man, and to learn from wrestling, which of course can be applicable from lots of other sports. But we're gonna let Coach Stu connect the dots for us tonight. We're gonna learn from wrestling some perspectives and techniques that hopefully will raise your consciousness as we struggle physically, emotionally, relationally, and spiritually just in our own lives. Okay, there's so many things that can be applied from the sport to our lives. And again, that's whatever sport you might be involved in. You're certainly going to see parallels here as well. So welcome, my wise guys. It's good
Cheers.
to see you both.
Hey.
There it is.
Hey, how you doing?
Got Coach Stu. Got
I'm
the
ready.
Rev. Got the Rev here, man. Good to see you guys.
I am dressed and ready. I have my wrestling shoes on and my singlet.
No. You're
My sniglet, according to the Rev, my sniglet.
Yeah, I'm never going to live that down, am I?
Oh, my God.
That's your sniglet,
Yeah.
brother.
I just
Okay.
don't have the headgear, but I have the headphones on. That's taking their place.
I
Still
love
protecting my
that.
ears, which is the whole point of the
Okay.
headgear.
All right, so he's got
So-
his goodies
It'll
on.
help you with any concept you happen to be wrestling with tonight.
Oh, there you go. Good one. Good
I
one.
like that.
That's the first of many.
There it
Hey, let me say hello to all of you beautiful, exotic cocktails out there. Hello, everybody. Hey, guess what, people?
What?
Guess what?
Tell us.
Cocktails and Wise Guys. Guess what?
What?
We are celebrating our 30th episode.
Yay!
How about that?
Fireworks go
Wow,
off.
it seems like
Crazy.
yesterday we started doing this.
How fun, huh? Yeah, it's been great. Thank you for listening to us. We certainly appreciate it and building our Roger base. But 30,
Yeah.
man, good
And,
stuff.
and if you
guys.
jumped in the middle, go back and listen to the first
yeah,
20.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
for sure.
So thanks a
Good
bunch
times.
for sticking with us, and we're having a blast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is so good. So milestone tonight, guys. Congrats.
I love
Congrats
it.
to both of you.
Cheers.
For sure.
Good deal.
So yeah, here's Stu. I got a question to ask you, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm listening.
Since we're talking about wrestling tonight, okay. I want to know whether or not you ever have heard one of your wrestlers say, "I'm your worst nightmare," to an opponent before the match starts.
Oh, no way. Not my guys. Not my guys. They'd be doing burpees for days.
No,
If
that's
that was
my
the
world.
case.
I hear that in church every Sunday.
There it is. Okay. So I
Yeah,
don't,
we compete with humility.
there you go. See, I
We
like that.
prove it on the mat, is where we don't have to say anything.
Now, that's your
It's-
team. What about the opponents?
There's,
They
you
get a little
you
vocal?
get guys like that.
Yeah.
You get guys that'll stand over you after scoring a point. And I just tell my guys,
no,
you just
don't
keep
go
your
there.
cool,
Don't
and
go
you just
there.
go score more points or pin them.
Well, I think I'm not sure I've said this on the podcast before, but my son, he played ice hockey from the time he was,
Oh, yeah.
small.
That's another tough sport.
It is very tough, okay? And this line right here probably got spoken 1,000 times, okay? Without a doubt, because it's just a different culture. Now, not everybody did that, okay? All
Yeah.
I'm saying is there was a lot more verbal yin-yang and going on between the players and even
yeah.
the coaches on the bench a lot of times, okay?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, those that can wrestle do it. Those that can't talk smack.
yin-yang about
That's
it,
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, wrestling.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk tonight about a lot of the nuances, a lot of the characteristics, a lot of the benefits, if you will, of wrestling, whether being on a team and all those other dynamics. We got somebody here right to my left that he lives it all the time, so he can be able to give us some really great insight. And at the same time, understanding that we're gonna talk about wrestling in general and some of the points, but we're certainly also going to talk about how these things in wrestling apply and are very applicable to our everyday lives and as we walk.
That's one of the things I love about Coach Stu.
Yeah.
He is a gifted man when it comes to metaphor. Everything he does in his life and his career is applicable to my life.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
I
So to
love
get
it.
the thing started, we're going to go a little off the reservation here from wrestling as far as a sport goes. All right. And we're going to talk a little bit about an example, okay? And we talk spirituality. There's so many parallels between, again, what we're going to talk about and developing your spirituality. Now, you may be a Christian, you may be of the Jewish persuasion, you may be a Buddhist, you might be a Muslim. I mean, it really transcends, I think, all of those religions. So we're not going to try to apply this in any way.
You know, I've met people from all kinds of religions, and everyone, to a person, has wrestled with their faith, has
There it
wrestled
is.
with God, has wrestled with themselves throughout. That's part of the evolutionary
Right.
process of becoming. So I think it's all applicable.
Exactly. It's gonna transcend all of that stuff. But what we are gonna start with tonight is an example, certainly from Christianity, from the Old Testament. So we're also talking the Jewish history here as well, right? And it's a story about Jacob, one of Isaac's sons,
yes.
right?
You
Rev?
know, I love all the characters in the Bible that wrestle with their humanity. And Jacob, has done some pretty awful things, and he's kind of not pleased with himself. He's been kind of a jerk to his brother, and his brother's on the warpath looking for him.
Yep.
And he's coming face to face with the things he's done. And he starts wrestling with an angel. And he's going round and round after round with the angel and refuses to let that angel go. And it is ripe with meaning. And there's imagery all over that wrestling match.
Right,
He
right.
says, I will not let you go until you bless me. You know how many of us on our path have wrestled with ourselves or with God looking for that blessing? And I think it applies on the mat, whether it's wrestling on a mat or it's wrestling inside. You don't let go. You don't give up. You are determined.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Jacob
yeah.
would not give up because he was wrestling inside with his humanness and his spirituality.
Right.
I don't think it was God. I think it was his divine essence. And he was hungry to be blessed by who he was spiritually that he had forgotten.
Yeah.
And so he was coming
What a
face
great
to
story,
face,
yeah.
not just his brother who was looking for him,
Yeah.
but his own judgment from inside himself.
We do that all the time to ourselves, don't we?
And there's a disconnect that has to happen. In that story, the angel supposedly dislocates Jacob's hip.
Yeah.
Well, that's moving away from the earth to the higher dimensions. It's the division between the earth and the spirit. And he got it. He got it. But he says, I want to know your name. Tell me your name, which means nature. That accurate translation is nature. I want to know the nature of my true essence. I want to know the nature of my goodness and not this horrible behavior. I wrestle on that kind of mat all day long.
Gee, that's the human condition out there, isn't it? Oh my gosh, yeah. And the last point in that story, which I really like, is that he came into that wrestling match named Jacob.
Yep.
And what does that name mean? Deceiver. All right, that's what that's what he's been his whole life. All right, he was known by that name, not
Well,
just
in the
the name.
etymology, you just don't quite measure up. It also,
Right.
if you dig into that name, I don't measure up because
Yeah.
you are a liar. You're deceiving yourself.
Right, but then-
but Israel.
Yeah, but then he came out. Yeah, he was renamed Israel. All right, and again, there was a new identity that he came out of that whole struggle
And it's a
with.
connection with God.
Isn't
It's
it
a
beautiful?
connection with the Spirit. He finally found that which he was hungry and thirsty for.
Right.
And his name changed. His nature
There
changed
it
in
is.
that moment.
Well, and I think we're going to see some really cool parallels, with that story, as Stu will talk a little bit about, and we'll flesh out a little bit the process that his wrestlers will go through in much the same way. It's really kind of neat. I mean, once we started really talking about this episode, it was really cool about how things really overlapped. So anyway, that's an example, certainly from the Bible. A great story if you haven't ever read it, or you might want to read it again if you have. It comes from Genesis, okay?
And read it as if Jacob lives in you, because that's how I read it. Jacob lives in me, Israel lives in me, the angel lives in me. A whole story is alive in me as I'm becoming more and more and more my new nature, my new name.
Absolutely. So, great story. Look it up. But now we're going to transition. Stu,
We're talking wrestling now.
here you are, brother.
Finally.
Yeah, man. We just talked about Jacob wrestling.
I hear you.
Okay.
I hear you.
So now we're going to talk a
taking it
little
to the
bit.
mat.
We're going to set the stage for, bring wrestling into the whole deal and some of the concepts, and we're going to let it overlay. So, Stu, I'm
And
gonna
how
turn
it
over.
relates to life,
Yeah,
right?
man,
And,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, being
Go
a
for it.
wrestler and wrestling all my life has made me who I am, for sure. I mean, absolutely. The things I've learned and developed,
Right.
you
right,
know,
Right.
and especially through my coaching, has just it. I make decisions and act the way I do because I was a wrestler, and because I am a wrestler and a wrestling coach. So let me tell you, wrestling is the oldest sport in the world. I mean, a lot of people don't know that.
They go
but
back to Greeks, right?
go
Don't they?
back to the Greeks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right.
Greco-Roman wrestling way
Yeah,
back
yeah.
when. But you know, it's the oldest Olympic sport, but it's the oldest sport. And you wouldn't believe the people that have wrestled. Like if I were to give you that list, you'd say, "Wow, they wrestled." Like when I tell people, you know, Abraham Lincoln wrestled. They're like, "What? Abraham
I
Lincoln?
knew
Yeah,
that.
he
Oh my
wrestled." I mean,
God.
there are so many actors and presidents, and I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And how it's formed their life is amazing.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, not everybody wrestles, and you know why? Because it's the toughest sport in the world too. Not only is it the oldest, it is the toughest.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody would do it. but it's not.
Well, there you
and there's
go.
a lot to it. I mean, but here's the thing that's important about my sport, about wrestling. It is if you wrestle even for a season,
Yeah.
you will be better at any other sport or activity that you participate in for a lot of reasons.
Wow.
A lot of
Well,
reasons.
there's a nugget right there, gang. Just sort of, again, apply that now. That's really good.
I mean, there's direct connections to football players and other
yeah.
sports, but let me tell you why that's true for anything you do in life. When I'm coaching, if you were to break down the mental aspect, the physical aspect, and the emotional aspect
Right,
of
right.
my sport, you know, how would you do that?
Yeah.
You know, what would be the percentages? Well, let me tell you, I coach 80% of what I coach is mental. Now, wrestling's a physical sport,
Right.
but 80% of it is what I'm dealing with, not only in competition, but in practices and just in general how my